The towering and massive Supreme Dharmakaya sat cross-legged in the void, its vast and surging spiritual energy waves roaring like a great ocean, violently sweeping out in all directions. The scene was so magnificent that it was almost overwhelming. On the Supreme Dharmakaya's body, a golden dragon coiled, its jaws wide open as a dragon's roar echoed, and the dragon's might spread throughout the air. The heavenly dragon Dharmakaya ranked 70 among the 99 types of Supreme Dharmakayas. Countless powerful beings from across the world marveled at the enormous figure, which seemed to obscure the very heavens and earth. The Supreme Dharmakaya, powered by the 8th-grade Supreme Sleeping King, was so solidly condensed that it was nearly indistinguishable from a physical form. Even though Chen possessed the great Luo golden body, he could not compare to it in terms of solidity. Chen gazed in awe at the colossal heavenly dragon Dharmakaya. This was the most powerful Supreme Dharmakaya he had ever seen. The main reason for this was the terrifying power of the Sleeping King. After all, even the most ordinary Supreme Dharmakayas in the hands of such a powerful being possessed destructive power that could send chills down anyone's spine. I've heard that to cultivate the heavenly dragon Dharmakaya, one must capture a true heavenly dragon as a medium, Chen mused. What surprised Chen was that the heavenly dragon Dharmakaya itself required the body of a heavenly dragon as a medium, absorbing its spiritual energy and merging it with one's own. The heavenly dragon was a highly ranked species of dragon, immensely powerful, and with a strong background. Capturing one was an almost impossible task. Yet the Sleeping King had managed to achieve this feat, which surely indicated an extraordinary opportunity. Amid the astonished exclamations, the sorrowful demon Supreme slowly raised his head. His usually calm face was now tinged with seriousness as he stared at the seemingly endless towering figure. He then formed a hand seal. Boom! As the seal was completed, an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy burst forth. A brilliant golden light condensed behind the sorrowful demon Supreme. In just a few breaths, the golden light solidified into a massive golden Dharmakaya, standing tall behind the sorrowful demon Supreme, no less impressive than the heavenly dragon Dharmakaya. The golden Dharmakaya appeared to be forged from gold, with one of its gigantic hands holding a golden alms bowl. The bowl was covered with countless ancient runes, and golden liquid threatened to overflow from it. That's the great Vajra Dharmakaya, ranked 73rd among the 99 types of Supreme Dharmakayas. Countless eyes were drawn to the golden Dharmakaya, its body exuding an unyielding strength that felt as solid as a Vajra. Clearly, the sorrowful demon Supreme's Supreme Dharmakaya was no ordinary form either. The two massive Supreme Dharmakayas stood in the heavens, and it felt as though even the sky had darkened under the weight of their oppressive presence. Everyone held their breath, watching this scene unfold. The Sleeping King's form slowly ascended, eventually landing on the crown of the heavenly dragon Dharmakaya. His eyes turned to the golden Vajra Dharmakaya in the distance, but he said nothing. He knew that today, a winner must emerge between them. With strength at their level, a true resolution of the battle could only be achieved by unleashing their ultimate trump cards. No one knew what would happen next. Boom. However, the Sleeping King was not one to hesitate. His gaze flashed, and with a forceful stomp of his foot, the golden heavenly dragon coiled upon the Supreme Dharmakaya, suddenly opened its fierce mouth and inhaled sharply. Bang! Bang! The space ahead shattered in an instant, with countless spatial fragments being sucked into the dragon's mouth. In the next moment, the golden spiritual energy, carrying dark spatial fragments, erupted like a torrential wave. Void-shattering dragon breath. Whoosh! The golden torrent tore through space, ignoring all distance, and appeared before the great Vajra Dharmakaya. This torrent, imbued with spatial fragments, was enough to annihilate anything that stood in its path. Great Vajrapalm. The sorrowful demon Supreme's face darkened. His mind moved, and the great Vajra Dharmakaya's gigantic palm swung out. The palm swelled in the wind, its golden light blinding, as though it had transformed into a towering Vajra mountain, directly clashing with the torrent. Boom! The entire world seemed to tremble at the moment of impact. Massive tornadoes, thousands of miles in diameter, formed in the wake of the collision, wreaking havoc like rampaging dragons, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. The golden torrent crashed against the Vajra-like palm, and the space around it shattered in layers. The hurricane between heaven and earth continued to rage, but countless people watched in fear. The level of collision was so intense that it was truly shocking. The eyes of the sorrowful demon supreme flashed with golden light. He gazed at the surging torrent of spiritual energy, his expression growing more solemn. However, as his tension increased, his body gradually relaxed. Your Excellency truly lives up to being the first of the three emperors. The calm voice of the sorrowful demon supreme spread with the wind across the world. He fixed his gaze on the sleeping king, who was standing on the supreme Dharma body's crown, taking a deep breath. With such immense strength as theirs, determining the victor was not something that could be done by ordinary means. Since that was the case, there was no need to hold back any longer. If you can withstand this move of mine, this duel of wagers will be considered your victory. The sorrowful demon supreme slowly closed his eyes. Then, his palms came together, and as they closed, the golden alms bowl in his supreme Dharma body's hand began to levitate. The golden bowl expanded rapidly, soon reaching a size of 100 feet. Ancient golden runes on its surface flickered wildly. Then, the bowl turned upside down, its opening aimed directly at the sleeping king and his heavenly dragon law body. As the bowl flipped, the hurricane between heaven and earth suddenly ceased. In that moment, even the flow of air seemed to slow down, and a silent, oppressive aura filled the space. Every powerhouse felt a chill run through their skin. Clearly, the sorrowful demon supreme had no intention of continuing the drawn-out battle, but instead was preparing to unleash his final move to quickly determine the outcome of this duel of wagers. Mu Chen's face tightened as he watched this scene. He could feel the terrifying fluctuations emanating from the golden alms bowl, knowing this must be the sorrowful demon supreme's most powerful strike. What is he trying to do? Tang Bing couldn't help but ask. Mu Chen's eyes flashed for a moment before he softly replied. He is probably about to use his supreme divine ability. Supreme divine abilities could only be wielded by powerful supreme Dharma bodies. And judging by the situation, this great Vajra Dharma body clearly possessed that capability. How terrifying would the power of a supreme divine ability be when unleashed by an 8th grade supreme? Mu Chen could hardly imagine it. With countless eyes watching from the heavens and earth, a breath of white air slowly exhaled from the sorrowful demon supreme's mouth. Then he suddenly opened his eyes, and what had once been calm now contained the fury of a mountain collapsing and the earth splitting. His hand seals changed rapidly, and he shouted with fury, "Supreme divine ability, Vajra annihilation vessel." Boom! The massive golden alms bowl trembled violently. The ancient runes on its surface flew out, and the bowl shook violently. In the next instant, a golden torrent erupted from the bowl, sweeping through the air like a relentless wave. The space itself was crushed and shattered, transforming into countless streams of golden energy, which surged toward the sleeping king. Each golden stream was covered in ancient runes, and the force of each one was enough to make a 7th grade supreme feel their scalp tingle. Now, with so many of them converging, even an 8th grade supreme would never dare to resist head-on. This was the sorrowful demon supreme's all-out attack. The golden torrents filled the sky as countless eyes widened in shock. Yet, the sleeping king's figure remained motionless, standing atop the heavenly dragon law body's crown. In the entire world, only the great Luo domain master remained as calm as an ancient well. Meanwhile, Lu Tiandao, standing in another part of the sky, slightly furrowed his brows. Boom! The golden torrents reversed and poured downward, surging toward the sleeping king. A faint smile finally appeared on the sleeping king's face, and then he suddenly formed a seal with his hands. Golden energy surged within his eyes. Roar! The golden dragon that coiled around the heavenly dragon law body let out a mighty roar. It then opened its massive jaws and inhaled forcefully. In that instant, countless onlookers were left dumbfounded as they witnessed the golden torrents of energy being sucked directly into the dragon's mouth. The world fell silent. No one had expected that the most powerful strike from the sorrowful demon supreme would be so easily blocked by the sleeping king. How strong! Tang Bing covered her mouth in astonishment. Mu Chen's expression also shifted. The deafening sound of tremors echoed through the heavens and earth, and the faces of the sword concealment elder and others in the direction of the 100 Battles domain changed drastically. It was clear that this unexpected turn of events had caught them off guard. Impossible. How could he withstand the full force of the sorrowful Demon Supreme's attack, when both are at the 8th grade Supreme level? The sword concealment elder muttered with a deep voice. On top of the great Vajra Dharma body, the sorrowful Demon Supreme gazed at the distant figure. As the golden light dispersed, the sleeping king reappeared. However, this time, the terrifying spiritual energy that had once surged around him had completely vanished. Although the spiritual energy had disappeared, the sorrowful Demon Supreme could still feel an immense sense of oppression looming over him. This caused a rare shift in his calm expression. He stared at the sleeping king for a long moment, then said, "I see now. It seems I misjudged." The pressure he felt was clearly beyond anything he had encountered before, indicating that the sleeping king's power had far surpassed his own. The sleeping king was not at the 8th grade Supreme level. He was at the 9th grade Supreme. Countless people fell silent, and even the Heavenly Vulture Emperor and Spirit Pupil Emperor gasped in disbelief. Who could have imagined that the usually half-asleep sleeping king was this unfathomably powerful? "I concede," the sorrowful Demon Supreme said straightforwardly. Knowing that victory was impossible, he dismissed his Dharma body and turned to retreat back to the 100 Battles domain's camp. The first duel of wagers ended with a victory for the Great Luo Heaven Domain. "It's ours." The cheers from the Great Luo Heaven Domain erupted like thunder, and even Tang Bing couldn't help but smile. With this first victory, all they needed was one more win to claim victory in the duel of wagers. With the first round concluded, the second duel of wagers began. Azura King versus Corpse Spirit King. However, just as the Great Luo Heaven Domain erupted in jubilant cheers and relaxed for the next duel, the second duel ended in an astonishingly quick fashion. The result was so shocking that the previous cheers came to a sudden halt. Everyone's pupils dilated as disbelief spread across their faces. In just 3 rounds, the Azura King was severely injured and defeated. 3 rounds, and the Azura King was wounded and forced to retreat. The entire world seemed to freeze in place as the Great Luo Heaven Domain's powerful figures stood dumbfounded. Even the 100 Battles domain side was filled with astonished expressions. This outcome was clearly beyond anyone's expectations. The name of the Azura King was well known, not only in the Great Luo Heaven Domain, but also in the 100 Battles domain. Though the Corpse Spirit King was mysterious, many had believed this battle would be even more brutal than the one between the Sleeping King and the sorrowful Demon Supreme. But the final result left everyone stunned. How could this be? Tang Bing's face paled as she gazed at the heavily injured Azura King, her voice barely audible. Mu Chen's expression also darkened as he looked into the sky, his gaze fixed on a figure standing in the distance, completely wrapped in black bandages. The eerie, cold energy emanating from him was chilling. Earlier, during the battle between the Azura King and Corpse Spirit King, the truth had been fully revealed. 7th grade Supreme. Both the Azura King and Corpse Spirit King were at the 7th grade Supreme level, which made them the pinnacle of their respective camps, top-tier royal-level fighters. Their strength was already comparable to that of Imperial-level experts. Given that both were at the 7th grade Supreme, such a battle would normally be highly contentious, likely leading to a stalemate unless one side had a special technique to break the deadlock. But just when everyone expected a long and drawn-out battle, the tide suddenly changed. Everyone saw it. After only a round or two, the Corpse Spirit King suddenly retreated. With a wave of his sleeve, a dark, mummified corpse appeared beside him. This corpse, almost skeletal in appearance, was covered in eerie black runes. A chilling, unnatural aura radiated from it. This was a technique exclusive to the Demon Corpse sect. Demon Corpses. Demon Corpse sect experts were known for their ability to control the bodies of powerful individuals, using them in battle. Generally, they fought with the power of these controlled corpses, often overwhelming opponents with sheer numbers. After the Corpse Spirit King summoned his life-bound demon corpse, The black bandages on his body suddenly shattered, and then, to everyone's shock, his body began to tear apart. Most of his flesh separated from his body and adhered to the life-bound demon corpse. The sight was incredibly bloody and grotesque, sending chills down anyone who saw it. Once the majority of his flesh fused with the life-bound demon corpse, the corpse spirit king swung his sleeve. The life-bound demon corpse charged towards the Xun'er king. Then, it exploded without hesitation. In a sense, after absorbing the corpse spirit king's flesh, the life-bound demon corpse's strength was comparable to a 7th-grade supreme. With its reckless self-detonation, the power unleashed was so overwhelming that even formidable experts like the Heavenly Vulture Emperor had to retreat. The life-bound demon corpse exploded, and despite the Xun'er king using every method at his disposal to defend, he was still severely injured and defeated. This outcome came so suddenly that many people were left dumbfounded, their gazes blank as they struggled to comprehend how the corpse spirit king could be so insane. The life-bound demon corpse was closely linked to its creator. While its self-detonation wouldn't cause the corpse spirit king's death, the damage he endured was unimaginable. Moreover, cultivating a life-bound demon corpse was extremely difficult, and the corpse spirit king had sacrificed his own creation. Though he won, in the long term, it might very well be a Pyrrhic victory. Thus, everyone was stunned by the corpse spirit king's reckless actions. Such a victory came at too great a cost. Phew! Chen took a deep breath of the cool air. He stared at the figure of the corpse spirit king, whose black bandages were slowly soaking with blood, dripping drop by drop. His spiritual energy fluctuations were at their lowest point, clearly showing that the self-explosion of the life-bound demon corpse had severely wounded him. That madman. That was probably the consensus of everyone regarding the corpse spirit king. Whoosh! The Heavenly Vulture Emperor dashed forward, catching the severely injured Xun'er king. His gaze was cold as he looked at the corpse spirit king and said, "What a ruthless method. But aren't you afraid the cost will be too high?" Beneath the black bandages of the corpse spirit king, a cold, merciless eye glinted. He seemed to smile sinisterly. Then, with a slight tremor, he raised his hand. In his palm, there was a bone-carved human-shaped doll, though its body was now covered in cracks. Corpse bone doll. Seeing this, the Heavenly Vulture Emperor's expression changed slightly. The corpse bone doll was an extremely sinister item, said to be able to take fatal damage on behalf of its master. However, crafting such an item was incredibly bloody, so few people possessed it. Who would have thought that the corpse spirit king had such a bizarre treasure? With the help of the corpse bone doll to withstand lethal damage, the corpse spirit king would not suffer any lasting consequences. No wonder he was so reckless. The spirit pupil emperor, Nine Nether, and the others also saw the corpse bone doll. Their faces darkened immediately, realizing that the corpse spirit king had prepared for this from the start. No wonder the 100 Battles domain had proposed such a duel of wagers. If it hadn't been for the sleeping king's deep and unfathomable strength securing the first victory, the great Luo Heaven domain would have already been at a severe disadvantage. Looks like we in the 100 Battles domain got lucky this time, the Sword Concealment Elder said with a sly smile, though his expression was loathed by the many strong experts from the great Luo Heaven domain. The Heavenly Vulture Emperor's gaze grew colder as he carried the unconscious Xun'er king back and entrusted him to others. His eyes then turned to the unmoving figure of the great Luo domain master, who remained as still as a mountain on his throne. One win, one loss. A faint smile emerged from the great Luo domain master, his body's radiance flickering slightly. His voice carried a chill. It seems the 100 Battles domain really did prepare thoroughly. Great Luo domain master, you're mistaken. Lu Tiandao, who had been silent until now, spoke with a smile. The 100 Battles domain's strength is not comparable to that of the great Luo Heaven domain. They are simply taking a desperate gamble. With Lu Tiandao, a super expert at the Earth Supreme level, supporting them, the Sword Concealment Elder and others felt less intimidated by the great Luo domain master. They immediately laughed and said, "Great Luo domain master, now that we've had 2 rounds of duels of wagers, it's a draw. 1 win, 1 loss. This third duel turned out to be the most important one, just as expected." The person from 100 Battles domain who would participate in this third duel was the most low-profile leader among them. Yet even someone as defiant as Lin Qingfeng couldn't help but admire his strength. In fact, many people even predicted that with Qin Bei's abilities, he would certainly stand out among the younger generation of the Northern Domain. On the other hand, the leader from Great Luo Heaven Domain, though a second Great Supreme, had some fame. However, compared to Qin Bei, there was an obvious gap in strength. Therefore, 100 Battles Domain was quite confident about this third duel. After all, as long as Qin Bei didn't lose, they could already consider this duel as a win. The Great Luo Heaven Domain had gathered a large force, and their reputation even surpassed that of 100 Battles Domain. If they lost like this, it would surely become a laughingstock in the Northern Domain. Over in Great Luo Heaven Domain, countless powerful figures exchanged glances before their eyes inevitably turned toward the young man from 9 Nether Guards. Their eyes were filled with helplessness. Originally, they had hoped to secure victories in the first 2 rounds, making the third duel insignificant. But who could have expected the situation to turn out like this? A duel that was supposed to be insignificant had now become a pivotal point. Such is the unpredictability of life. Facing the countless doubtful and helpless gazes, Mu Chun could only shrug his shoulders and shift his gaze toward the Great Luo Domain Master. Whether or not he participated in this duel clearly depended on the Master's decision. The eyes of many were then directed to the Great Luo Domain Master. The Master gave a faint smile, and there was no trace of surprise in his expression. It seems this result is not beyond my expectations. The Great Luo Domain Master's calm voice rang out, causing the powerful figures from Great Luo Heaven Domain to focus their gazes. What did this mean? Could it be that the Master had already predicted this situation? If so, why did he still choose Mu Chun for such a critical battle? Did he have such confidence in him? The Great Luo Domain Master's gaze shot toward Mu Chun, and his voice, slightly ethereal, echoed. This third duel concerns the reputation of Great Luo Heaven Domain. Are you confident? Mu Chun will give his all. Mu Chun responded with a calm salute. Though he was curious as to why such a prominent figure like the Great Luo Domain Master paid so much attention to him, a mere nobody, since the opportunity for battle merit had presented itself, he naturally had no reason to refuse. Good, the Great Luo Domain Master smiled and said, then go for this third duel. The powerful figures from Great Luo Heaven Domain sighed helplessly. It seemed that the Domain Master had not changed his mind. In that case, they could only hope that this new leader, Mu Chun, was truly worthy of such a promotion. Mu Chun, good luck. Tang Bing clenched her small fist and cheered for him. Although she didn't know how the third duel would turn out, she would support Mu Chun no matter what. Mu Chun nodded at her, just as he was about to move when he felt a pair of beautiful eyes fixated on him. He looked up and saw 9 Nether's concerned gaze locked onto him. Mu Chun smiled at 9 Nether, not saying much. With a swift movement, he appeared high in the sky, under the watchful eyes of countless strong figures from both sides. He then looked toward 100 Battles Domain, cupped his fists, and a clear, loud voice echoed through the air. From Great Luo Heaven Domain, 9 Nether Palaces Mu Chun, here to learn from you. The young man stood in midair, his clear voice spreading, which immediately attracted the attention of countless experts from 100 Battles Domain. A low murmur of disbelief spread among them, as they quickly realized that the young man before them was only a second Great Supreme. This level of power, within the leadership of 100 Battles Domain, could only be considered acceptable at best. However, compared to the top leaders like Qin Bei and Lin Qingfeng, the gap in strength was immense. Has Great Luo Heaven Domain run out of people? They actually sent such a young kid to fight. If they want to admit defeat, they could have just said so. It would have been easier. Haha, well said. Whispers of ridicule filled the air. However, the young man in the sky, with his handsome features, remained calm, not showing the slightest anger at the mocking voices. In a corner of the 100 Battles Domain, Qin Tiangang stared grimly at Mu Chen's figure. Behind him, Qin Ling also wore a face as dark as thunder. His Thunder Devil Legion had been defeated by Mu Chun, resulting in heavy casualties. Now, seeing him again, it was only natural for him to feel bitter. This kid has no idea of the heavens or the earth. He thinks anyone can challenge Qin Bei. Qin Ling gritted his teeth and said, his tone filled with mockery. Mu Chen's victory over him had been due to his superior control over battle intent. But in this duel of wagers, where armies couldn't be used, Mu Chen still dared to show up. He was simply too arrogant. Qin Ling couldn't understand what the great Luo domain master was thinking, putting such an important wager on this kid. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when he learns just how formidable Qin Bei is. I wonder how he'll look when he's crushed like a lost dog, Qin Ling said coldly, impatient to see Mu Chen in a miserable state. While these people whispered among themselves, at the front of the 100 Battles domain, Qin Bei, dressed in blue, raised his head. He gazed at Mu Chen's figure, his expression calm. There was no sign of contempt on his face. After all, this was a man who had made his way step by step to this point. He couldn't be a fool. Even if Mu Chen appeared flawless on the outside, with some hidden flaw inside, he would still treat him with full seriousness. After all, his strength had been built on years of steady, unwavering effort. When a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its might. Qin Bei, this last battle is in your hands, the sword concealment elder said, looking at Qin Bei with a grave tone. Qin Bei nodded without saying much. With a single step, he vanished and appeared before Mu Chen. His voice, calm and indifferent, rang out. 100 Battles domain. Great sorrow heaven, Qin Bei. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed as he looked at the calm man before him. Though the latter hadn't yet begun to use his spiritual energy, the subtle pressure Mu Chen felt told him that this man was likely even stronger than Qin Ling of the Thunder Devil sect. It was clear that Qin Bei's strength was at least at the 3rd grade supreme level. You were chosen by the great Luo domain master with your 2nd grade supreme strength, so you must have some extraordinary qualities. I look forward to your guidance, Qin Bei said, staring at Mu Chen. He didn't say anything more. With a light stamp of his foot, the space behind him suddenly distorted, revealing the vast supreme sea. A surging wave of spiritual energy swept across the world. This spiritual energy wave was beyond the peak of 3rd grade supreme, and it seemed that Qin Bei was already close to stepping into the 4th grade supreme level. With a bit more cultivation, he could likely complete the breakthrough and become a 4th grade supreme. Seeing the spiritual energy fluctuations emanating from Qin Bei, the many strong figures from the great Luo domain couldn't help but pale. Su Qing and Zhou Yu, who had both reached the 3rd grade supreme, had serious expressions. Compared to Qin Bei, they were still lacking. If it were them in this duel, the outcome would likely be grim. The two exchanged glances and sighed lightly. Qin Bei was undoubtedly the most low-key yet powerful leader in the 100 Battles domain. Half a step into 4th grade supreme. Mu Chen's expression grew serious as he also observed Qin Bei. This was undoubtedly the most powerful leader he had encountered so far. Crackle. Brilliant lightning flickered across Mu Chen's body, and with a clenched fist, his body rapidly transformed into lightning. 9 thunder runes appeared on his chest. Pushing his thunder god body to its limit, Mu Chen's eyes grew icy. With a violent stomp, space twisted, and his figure vanished in an instant. Mu Chen disappeared. Qin Bei's eyes shifted for a moment. Then he swiftly formed a seal with one hand and struck heavily at the space behind him. As he did so, a vast wave of spiritual energy surged. Boom! The space behind Qin Bei was torn open, and a dragon-shaped figure quickly emerged, morphing into Mu Chen's form. His fist, charged with immense power, became like a roaring thunderclap, striking fiercely toward Qin Bei's head. At the same time, Qin Bei's seal arrived just in time. The two attacks collided. Bang! A violent shockwave of spiritual energy spread, sending Mu Chen's figure flying backward. He stomped heavily in midair, stabilizing himself. He lifted his head and glanced at Qin Bei, who had only taken a few steps back. Clearly, despite his attack with the Dragon Sword art, the effect was minimal. With the strength of a 2nd grade supreme, you can tear through space at short distances. You do have some skill, Qin Bei said, staring at Mu Chen, his tone indifferent. Mu Chen smiled but didn't respond. When I fight, I don't like to test my opponent, so don't blame me for not giving you a chance to show off. Qin Bei also smiled, though his smile was cold. With a wave of his sleeve, his robe fluttered as if moved by an invisible wind, then suddenly billowed outward, making a loud rustling sound. A vast, ocean-like wave of spiritual energy swept over the area. His figure flickered and appeared high in the sky. He extended his palm, pressing it down toward Mu Chun through the void. As his palm descended, strange light patterns emerged on his palm, resembling a stone tablet. Boom! The dazzling spiritual energy surged down, transforming into a giant spiritual palm. In the center of the palm, a stone tablet rune erupted with brilliant light. This blow was as if it could suppress the very mountains and rivers. Divine Monument Hand. At Qin Bei's low shout, the massive spiritual palm turned into a shadow, descending on Mu Chun, leaving him no room to escape. Mu Chun took a deep breath, and cold light surged in his black eyes. In the next moment, a terrifying murderous aura exploded from him, and the great Sumidemon pillar appeared, instantly wrapped in his arms. He swung it powerfully, crashing it into the giant spiritual palm. Boom! Boom! The terrifying spiritual energy storm raged outward. Under the overwhelming pressure of Qin Bei's spiritual palm, Mu Chun and the great Sumidemon pillar were knocked down toward the ground. In this direct confrontation, it was clear that Qin Bei's superior spiritual strength gave him the upper hand. Boom! Mu Chun's figure crashed onto a mountain peak, shattering it instantly. The great Xun'er demon pillar collided with the divine monument hand, and Mu Chun's body crackled with dazzling thunder, while a low growl seemed to come from his throat. The ancient magic runes on the great Xun'er demon pillar writhed, and a chilling, murderous aura erupted. Boom! A crimson column of murderous light pierced through the divine monument hand. The great Xun'er demon pillar also pierced the stone palm imprint, shattering it violently. Even after breaking the divine monument hand, Mu Chun didn't show any relief. Instead, his expression grew serious as he looked up. In the sky above, massive stone tablet handprints continued to fall, the oppressive spiritual force causing the mountains below to collapse. Qin Bei was indeed as he had said, showing no intention of holding back. Such a violent assault could easily crush any third grade supreme. On the great Luo Heaven Domain side, many strong figures were deeply shaken by Qin Bei's attack. Su Qing and Zhou Yu both had grim expressions, knowing that if they were in Mu Chen's position, they too would likely be defeated by this onslaught. But they wondered, how would Mu Chen handle such an attack? Their gazes turned to the collapsing mountain, where Mu Chen stood, holding the great Xun'er demon pillar atop a giant boulder. His handsome face, though tense, remained calm, unafraid and undaunted. Tang Bing and the experts from Nine Nether's palace clenched their fists, their eyes filled with concern. On the 100 Battles domain side, many of the experts began to relax. In their eyes, the final duel of wagers was nearly decided. The young man named Mu Chun was clearly at a disadvantage against Qin Bei's assault. Massive stone tablet handprints howled down, reflected in Mu Chen's pupils like an impending mountain collapse and tsunami. But his expression showed no fear. Instead, his eyes slowly closed as his hands formed seals. Brilliant golden light erupted just as the stone tablet handprints slammed down. In an instant, the light overflowed, enveloping the entire world. Boom! Boom! The roar of explosions reverberated, and the earth trembled violently. Mountains collapsed in succession, while massive cracks stretched to the horizon. Dust and smoke filled the air. However, their laughter lasted only for a moment. From the rising smoke and dust, a dazzling golden light suddenly pierced through. High in the sky, Qin Bei's usual calm expression shifted slightly for the first time. With a wave of his sleeve, a fierce wind swept through, scattering the smoke and dust. When the air cleared, his pupils contracted sharply. Amidst the collapsed mountain ruins, a towering silhouette stood. A golden sun hovered behind its head, and an indescribable sense of oppression emanated from it. At the top of this towering figure, glowing with golden light, Mu Chen stood, unscathed. He looked up, meeting Qin Bei's gaze. In the cold glint of their eyes, sparks seemed to fly, and it felt as though the very space between them was distorting. This was the true essence of a battle between dragons and tigers. The brilliant golden light filled the air as the golden figure stood amidst the mountain ruins. A golden sun floated behind its head, resembling a giant Buddha suddenly materializing, bringing with it a terrifying sense of pressure. Countless powerful beings in the sky shrank their eyes at the sudden appearance of this golden figure, all sensing the immense pressure radiating from it. Such pressure was not something a mere second-grade Supreme could possess. Although they recognized the golden Buddha-like figure as the supreme Dharmakaya that Chen had cultivated, the people present could not distinguish its origins. Among the 99 supreme Dharmakayas, there seemed to be no similar one, and the overwhelming pressure it exuded was unlike any nameless, ordinary supreme Dharmakayas. Could it be a mysterious supreme Dharmakaya not recorded on the list? Some of the stronger individuals whispered among themselves. For many supreme beings, such a powerful Dharmakaya was incredibly intriguing. Up in the sky, Qin Bei furrowed his brow as he stared at the dazzling, golden supreme Dharmakaya. It seems he has some skill, he muttered. However, he was not particularly surprised. After all, Chen had been chosen by the great Luo domain master, and anyone with the eye of an Earth Supreme would know that a person of such caliber would not be unremarkable. Boom! As Qin Bei muttered, Chen, standing atop the great sun indestructible body, coldly shifted his gaze and began to change his hand seals. The golden light surged, and with a stomp of the giant foot of the great sun indestructible body, he shot into the sky. Whoosh! The massive body moved with the speed of thunder, and all anyone could see was a golden rainbow soaring into the sky, followed by the great sun indestructible body appearing directly above Qin Bei. Boom! A golden giant palm slammed down towards Qin Bei, its golden brilliance shattering the void and descending with a pressure so overwhelming it was like a mountain collapsing. The suffocating wind pressure rushed in. Qin Bei's expression tightened, and he immediately slapped out with his palm, sending a stone tablet imprint hurtling toward the attack. Boom! The two massive palm imprints collided. However, this time, Qin Bei's stone tablet imprint was unable to gain the upper hand. Upon contact, it shattered instantly. The shockwave spread, and Qin Bei's body was jolted backward, pushed over 100 meters by the forceful wind. Whoosh! A wave of astonished cries erupted from the direction of 100 Battles domain. They hadn't expected that the previously dominant Qin Bei would suddenly be suppressed like this. It was only now that they had reigned in their earlier dismissal of Chen. The young man, who appeared to have the power of only a second-grade Supreme, clearly possessed some unique abilities. If you don't summon your Supreme Dharmakaya now, you might not have the same momentum you did earlier. Chen, standing atop his Supreme Dharmakaya, smiled at Qin Bei. Qin Bei's eyes turned cold as he glared at Chen. Taking a deep breath, he spoke in a low voice. As you wish. Suddenly, his hands came together, and his hand seals shifted rapidly, leaving traces of afterimages in their wake. Boom! A surge of spiritual energy, as vast as the sea, erupted from Qin Bei's body. A towering figure, similar to Chen's, materialized behind him. The figure, also about 1,000 feet tall, stood in the sky. Its Dharmakaya was cloaked in golden robes, and it held a massive golden meditation staff across its arms. A fierce aura swept outward. When the supreme Dharmakaya of the Qin Bei was summoned, it immediately drew gasps of astonishment from the crowd. It seemed that everyone was familiar with such a Dharmakaya, as it was one of the top-tier Dharmakayas in the Great Sorrow Heaven. Only the most outstanding disciples were qualified to cultivate it. Is this the 93rd ranked Arhat Dharmakaya? Chen looked at the imposing Supreme Dharmakaya with a faint smile. If the ranking of Supreme Dharmakayas was to be discussed, no one here would have a higher rank than the Great Sun Indestructible Body. If both sides were at the same power level, Chen was absolutely confident that with his Great Sun Indestructible Body, he could sweep through anyone present without hesitation. Boom! Clearly, Qin Bei wasn't one to hold back. As soon as the Arhat Dharmakaya was summoned, he stomped his foot, and the Supreme Dharmakaya shot forward, with the golden Zen staff transforming into torrents of energy, rushing toward the Great Sun Indestructible Body. The torrents formed by the golden Zen staff magnified in Chen's eyes. With a flick of his hand, the Great Sumru Demon Pillar appeared in the Great Sun Indestructible Body's grasp. Immediately, a murderous aura erupted, and the pillar charged forward to meet the attack head-on without retreating. Although Qin Bei had 1 foot in the 4th grade supreme stage, when it came to the supreme Dharmakaya, Chen was not the least bit afraid. Boom! The two colossal entities collided in midair, shaking the very space itself. The golden Zen staff's torrents and the demon pillar's afterimages repeatedly clashed, with the sound of metal and thunder resonating, and brilliant sparks bursting like fireworks in the sky. Everyone gazed in awe at the fierce battle in the sky. Clearly, neither side was holding back. Every attack was vicious and brutal. A single hit could cause devastating injuries. In just a few minutes, the two massive entities had clashed over 100 times in the sky, and the turbulent fluctuations of spiritual energy caused the space to twist and warp. In the great Luo heaven domain, most of the powerful figures watched the battle in awe, their expressions filled with astonishment and complexity. Su Qing, Zhou Yu, and others were especially shocked. The strength Chen was displaying now was far beyond what he had shown when he fought Wu Tian. He had grown much stronger. Even when facing someone like Qin Bei, who had 1 foot in the 4th grade supreme stage, Chen was holding his own. They all realized they wouldn't be able to do the same. They exchanged glances and smiled bitterly. In less than a year since coming to the great Luo heaven domain, this young man had grown to such a level. No wonder the domain lord had taken such an interest in him. After this battle, I might have to step down from my position as the leader of the 4 commanders, Su Qing said with a smile. He wasn't jealous, but there was an undeniable sense of reluctance. It seemed he would need to speed up his training, or else if Chen surpassed him too much, it would be quite demoralizing. Zhou Yu nodded and added, Chen is definitely far stronger than the likes of Chao Feng. Boom. As their thoughts raced, the battle above continued without pause, with relentless and furious attacks. Qin Bei stood on the top of the Arhat Dharmakaya's head, his body seeming to merge with the Dharmakaya. However, as the battle raged on, he grew increasingly alarmed. He couldn't sense any weakening of Chen's great sun indestructible body, and the power coming from the demon pillar was even causing the golden light on his Zen staff to dim slightly. This guy's supreme Dharmakaya is strange. Qin Bei's expression turned grim as he realized this battle couldn't continue like this. It should be about time. Qin Bei's gaze swept over the space, and he suddenly formed a hand seal. As he did so, the Arhat Dharmakaya swiftly retreated over 1,000 meters. Its giant hand clapped together, creating a booming sound that resonated like thunder. Arhat Golden Zen Array. Boom. At the sound of that, Chen's eyes sharpened. He suddenly looked up, and to his shock, the space around him began to fluctuate. The golden light spread out, transforming into countless golden Zen staffs that surrounded him from all sides, trapping him in place. There were about 1,000 golden Zen staffs, their power overwhelming. The violent spiritual energy fluctuations caused the very heavens and earth to tremble. This sudden turn of events stunned the surrounding onlookers. Everyone stared at Qin Bei in disbelief. This was indeed the most low-key yet strongest leader of the 100 Battles domain. The so-called Arhat Golden Zen Array was not a spiritual array, but rather one secretly formed by the Qin Bei. With an assault of this scale, it was enough to determine the outcome of the battle. This battle is over. When the Sword Concealment Elder and the others saw this, they couldn't help but smile faintly. They all knew that the Arhat Golden Zen Array was one of Qin Bei's trump cards. Once deployed, such an attack could shatter any opponent. Over the years, countless powerful Supreme Dharmakayas had been obliterated under the Arhat Golden Zen Array of Qin Bei. Chen raised his head, looking at the dense golden Zen staves. Feeling the violent fluctuations of spiritual energy, his expression became slightly more serious. It was clear that Qin Bei was no easy opponent. Boom! Without hesitation, once the formation was complete, Qin Bei waved his sleeve. The sky filled with golden Zen staves, piercing through the void and transforming into countless golden chains, crashing towards the massive great sun indestructible body. Whoosh! Whoosh! The earth-shattering assault descended. Chen took a deep breath and formed a seal with his hands. As he did, a golden sun seemed to bloom from the center of the great sun indestructible body's forehead. Supreme divine art, single yang force. Golden light shot from the great sun indestructible body's eyes as its hands came together, creating a golden shield that enveloped 100-foot radius around it. The overwhelming golden Zen assault arrived. Bang! Bang! However, as the thousands of golden Zen chains entered the golden light barrier, they suddenly exploded in midair, transforming into a shower of golden light before the astonished eyes of the onlookers. The explosion echoed continuously. The golden light seemed like an indestructible shield, preventing the Zen assault from approaching the colossal body. Amid the endless explosions, the golden supreme Dharmakaya stood silently, untouched within the golden light, unaffected by the destructive forces that raged around it. The entire world fell silent. The sword concealment elder and the other giants of the 100 Battles domain, whose faces had been smiling before, now stiffened little by little.